What's going on, Mountaineer fans? This is Mountaineer Mafia again with the start of the season preview video. As you know, yesterday, for those of you watching today on September 2nd, was the 10th anniversary of us beating Michigan up in the Big House. And I will never get tired of saying that phrase. I was lucky enough to be there and witness it in person, and it was still one of the best days of my life. Going in there, not expecting a victory, but expecting to be competitive, and then being even more than that was just a great time and a great atmosphere for the App fans right around us. Not so much for the Michigan fans, but we're all okay with that, I think. And obviously in that game we were FCS at the time, so I don't feel there's any true comparisons directly between that team 10 years ago and the team that's going to face off against Georgia today. But the one comparison is that we do open on the road at a contender for a conference title, and some even think a national title possibly. And obviously Georgia, mainly for the SEC East this year, has some good aspirations for that, and for good reason. And let's first take a look at how we've done in these types of games the past 2 seasons. So I don't want to go back any further than that because we were either FCS long before that or transitioning still. So I want to take a look back at the ones where I really feel like we were actually in a groove, and it's worth comparing statistically this game with those. So I'll go back as far as only the Clemson game. And you know, I feel like a lot of us thought we were pretty much in that one until Taylor had some miscues, shall we say, a couple interceptions quickly. But overall, we rushed the ball 45 times in that game, and we threw 28 passes. So run heavy and a light passing game, probably because our wide receivers weren't top caliber at the time, and you know, he wanted to trust the running game and establish the run game to control the clock, control the game a little bit better. So then we'll jump into the Tennessee game. Very similar statistics as far as running and throwing the ball. We ran the ball no less than 43 times against Tennessee, and the longest rush that day was only 20 yards, which is a little surprising to me with how well we ran the ball overall, that our longest run was only for 20. But Taylor did throw it 23 times in that one and completed just over half of those. So a little bit better in that one, and obviously we were a little bit more competitive overall in that game as well. And then we'll go into the Miami game. 49 rush attempts to 22 pass attempts. We know that one didn't go quite as well as the Tennessee game, but we know we also lost our top rusher at that point in that game. I don't think we're going to change much tonight after seeing those statistics. I think it'll be very similar. Our run game is strong, and I expect much the same tonight. I think we try and run the ball, control the clock. It worked for us last season in the opener against Tennessee, and I think it's a game a lot of us thought we should have won. I know that I certainly thought, you know, had a few things gone differently, we could have easily walked out of there with a victory. So going in specifically to this Georgia game, obviously we've got to limit the turnovers. That's first and foremost. That's really against any opponent, but especially an opponent that's as high caliber as Georgia is, especially this year. We've also got to improve the third down efficiency. Let's go back to those same 3 games we already talked about. So for Miami, we were 2 for 13. Tennessee, 3 for 13. Clemson, 3 for 16. None of those are good. None of those are even acceptable, really, when you come down to it. Biggest reason our failure on third down is we got into third and long situations. We couldn't get out of them because our passing game was weak. Either because Taylor couldn't find an open receiver, or the receivers weren't getting open. I don't know, you want to put the cart before the horse or whatever you want to say, but it wasn't working. The run game worked, and it wasn't going to get us a first down every time we rushed the ball. So we do still have to develop the passing game. I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that this year, even though I know we will still be run heavy for most of those. Let's go into UGA specifically as far as what they've done against Sun Belt opponents over the last 2 seasons to keep it as close to our statistics as we were looking at. So last year they beat Louisiana Monroe 51-14. I'm sorry, that was 2015. They also had to go to overtime to beat Georgia Southern 23-17. Georgia Southern ran the ball 53 times for a total of 233 yards on the ground. They went 6 for 16 on third downs, and they only turned it over once. I think if we can keep anywhere near that stat line tonight, we will definitely be in the game. I don't know if that's going to even be enough to win it, but I'll definitely think that that would keep us in the game with the similar statistics to what Georgia Southern did in 2015. Last season, Georgia beat Louisiana Lafayette 35-21. So that's not really a blowout, guys, and we know how we've performed against Louisiana Lafayette these last few seasons. So there's some good aspirations there for us. I'll go with a little bit of the intangibles now. Taylor Lamb is a senior playing at UGA for the very first time. As far as I know, they did not recruit him at all. He'll want to show up and show out for that game, but he's got to keep the nerves out and shake off any bad plays early. Don't let it get to his head. Don't force bad throws to make up for anything that he's done. Hopefully he can stay the leader that he is in this locker room. It seems like the guys on the team really respect him and follow him as a leader. Hopefully that can continue today. Moore will want to come out and prove that the Offensive Player of the Year was no fluke. He's going to want to earn everything he gets, and our O-line will have to protect Taylor and open up holes for Jalen to run through all night. He's shifty and he's going to get some of his yards all by himself, but the more our O-line can help him, the better he's going to perform tonight, the better we're going to see him run through the holes. Defensively, we're going to have to stop the two-headed monster of Sony Michel and Nick Chubb. And this is not going to be an easy task. But if we can slow them down at all, we hope Jacob Eason goes to the air and doesn't throw very accurately. You know, he's a highly ranked quarterback coming into college. He's still pretty well thought of now. He's a little bit younger, and I think people are thinking he's coming into his own. So, you know, he's got the NFL caliber size and arm strength. So, you know, if he can put it all together, it's going to be a threat just as much there as on the ground. But I'm hoping that they focus on the ground game and we can help prevent them from running all over us and then force him to the air. And then our defensive backs could step up and play another great game. Duck had an amazing game against the University of Tennessee for the first time last year as a true freshman. He usually seems to step up to the competition. The Miami game made our entire defense struggle a little bit, but I think overall that we can shape up and learn from that game, and hopefully the coaches have done that over this summer in prep for this game. And the last thing I want to mention is that in the Michigan game, one of the biggest aspects of that game for both teams was the kicking game, and we all know why. The kicks were very important that day. Michigan missed 2 down the stretch, and we just hit most of ours, if not all of them. Don't remember specifically, but Julian Roush was a great kicker, and he was really big when you needed him to come up in big situations, and we need that again tonight. No matter what the score is, we need that going forward. So even if we're down late in the game, I'd still rather see some points on the board and some opportunities for our kickers to keep their confidence up going into you know, Savannah State next week and non-conference slate, and then continuing it further into the conference slate. Just give them the experience in these big games, these big moments to hit those big kicks, because we never know when it'll come into be a factor later down the line. So I really think that all in all, we'll play a very good, solid game. I can expect us to try and control the clock as much as possible through the run game. I'm not going to go with a straight-up prediction, but I do think we'll be in it, and I hope to be celebrating when it's all over. Go Mountaineers!